you don't have to have these super mega star results to get started. And in fact, if you start from where you are today, you're going to have a much better chance of success. But in addition of being successful is, we talked about this earlier, no one can call you on your BS for saying, hey, we only sold 100 books this month.
You hear all the bull about marketing every day. Make your money in your sleep. My new offer is crushing it. My guru could beat up your guru. It's time to go right to the source and get the truth about marketing. With your host, the founder of copychief.com, Kevin Rogers.
Hey everybody, it's the truth about marketing, where we go a little bit deeper with the experts that you know and love and sometimes are weirded out by, and find out what are they doing that's really working, that's really moving the needle, bringing in the cash, and what did they do in their business that surprised them, something they did, tried on a whim that worked way better or worse than they ever thought it would have. So today I'm thrilled to have my old buddy Tim Castleman on the show. How you doing, Tim?
Man, I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on, man. Really appreciate it. You and I have met a few times at conferences, and I've always enjoyed you on Facebook because you're one of these guys who there is zero filter. You get really riled up sometime, and you have some of the most classic rants I've seen in marketing. You're a lot like, you remind me more of my comedy friends than most marketers. You're not like sitting around wondering, how's this going to go over? This won't turn anyone off, I hope. You just let it rip, man. So did you ever struggle with that, or do you just, there's one Tim and that's what you get?
I've kind of gotten back and forth with it, and I've really worked, we're going to get woo-woo right off the bat. Like, I've really worked on myself the last couple of years through therapy, which I know a lot of comedians kind of share. Oh, yeah. Like, every famous comedian always is like, so I'm in therapy. That's pretty much how their deal starts. No, it's always been something that I've always had growing up as a kid. I was always like either the smallest in height or the skinniest kid, and I've always had a mouth. I mean, I've always been able to defend myself through sarcasm and wit, but I quickly learned, especially growing up in school and middle school and high school, the downside of having a mouth and running it is that some people aren't always going to agree with you, and if you're not very quick on your feet and you're not able to make them laugh or make them kind of relax, like, you're going to get your ass kicked. Yeah. So I learned very early in life, like, okay, it's fine to poke fun, but it's also, you need to make it in a humorous way, or a way that you can get at least one person in the group laughing, because if they're laughing, they're probably not punching you in the face. Which is a good motto to live by. If they're laughing, they're not swinging, basically.
It's hard to do both. That's right.
It's hard to do both at the same time.
Science tells us, yeah.
There's a breath mechanism, airflow issues, things like that. So I've always done that, and, I've always tried to, and I don't know where this part comes from, but I've always tried to run my business in a way where I was very authentic. That's not the part that I don't understand. The part that I've always tried to run it is like, I have a debt-free business and have since day one. So I really try to manage my cash flow and make sure that no matter what happens, if I were to get hit by a bus tomorrow, I would be okay for a prolonged period of time. And with that peace of mind of, hey, like, if there's a big blow up or I cause a big stink and my business takes a temporary hit, long term I'm okay because of the smart financial decisions I've made in the past. So I feel like that gives me a little bit of peace of mind, and it also gives me the more than the peace of mind, it gives me the freedom to offend people if and when I deem necessary, or there's a point that I really want to get across, because I don't have to worry about the financial ramifications. I don't have a huge staff. I don't have, I'm not Billy Graham or Joel Osteen, where people would be offended by me saying that. And the real reason that I'm like that is I've always believed that I'm the same guy on stage. Maybe I'm a 9 or a 10 on stage, but when I get off, I'm going to be like a 6 or 7. So I never want to go somewhere and people go, man, I had this impression of you based upon what you said on stage, that you were this, for instance, good, clean living Christian guy, and then you were telling dirty jokes in the bar, and I can't believe it, and I'm so offended.
I see. So yeah, right. So well, you bring up two great points. One is reminds me of Carlton's famous "FU money" advice to freelancers. Right? It's like you're going to come across the bad client, you're going to hit a dip, and you're going to be in the middle of a job you're just hating and know you can't deliver on. And you need to have that money stacked away to go, you know what, I'm not doing this. This was a mistake. I'm backing out of it. Good luck, right?
Yeah, well, not only that, but you also have the second side of that, which is, hey, I know you're a broke freelancer and you're desperate, so you're going to put up with the shitty pay, the shitty working conditions and all that. And it's just like he said, and I remember that from his courses, is like you have to have the ability to walk away. Because didn't he have someone where this was back when he took a long break and he came back. I remember the story. The guy offered he was going to pay Carlton like $1,000, and Carlton was so desperate for the work that he said, "Yeah, I'll do it." And then the guy sent him a check for like $500 and was like, "Well, I really want to motivate you now," And he was like, "I'm out of here." Like,
games, right?
Yeah, and that's just ridiculous that you would ever have to put yourself in a position. And sadly, I know that that's the rule more than the exception. But I don't know, because of how I was raised and my issues with money, I've always I've still got my communion money. I'm sure hidden somewhere. So I like to have that low cash reserve, and that's just a peace of mind thing. Do I think it would be any different? Not really. But having the money gives me a little bit more peace of mind and makes me think less about what I'm going to say sometimes, which is a blessing and a curse, because there are times when I have gone out there and planted my flag, and then I have to be like, oh shit, everyone's looking. I'm just going to pick this thing up, take it off the playing field, and just slink away, like nothing to see here, nothing to see here.
Well, there's something about that transparency that you brought up about wanting to be the genuine article all the time. And I always say, the people who are so concerned about their image are the most vulnerable out there, right? Whether you're an entertainer, a marketer, whatever. I always say, like, I use Jack Black as an example. I go, who's going to mess with Jack Black? Like, who's going to humiliate Jack Black? He'd be the first guy to call it out and make fun of it and have a good time, be self-deprecating, because there's never a filter. And it's the same with you and guys like, I think, Colin Terrio, Carlton is this way, who just, who's the guy who's going to like expose them and humiliate them when they're the first ones admitting flaws and sort of, picking the scabs in front of everybody.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great point. It's like I don't remember. I was talking to this marketer, this really, really well-known marketer, and they asked me a similar question. They said, well, aren't you worried about your image? And I was like, I have a podcast called the Two Drink Tim Podcast where I get drunk before I record it, and then I slur my way through 30 minutes saying whatever comes off. And you think I'm worried about what people are going to say about me on the internet? Like, and you brought up the great point about self-deprecation, because a lot of that is true. It's like, if I take the first shot at me, then you can't hurt me, one, and two, you don't have any power over me. If I expose all my flaws and my warts and my weaknesses to the world, then what are you going to blackmail me with? Or what are you going to, I'm going to expose you for this. It's like, no, you're not, because I've already admitted to that weakness or that flaw. There's nothing that could come out, of my past that I would be like, oh man, that's uncharacteristic for Tim Castleman. Right. If anything, recently the hardest part has been because, I mentioned trying to work on myself and being a better human being and not flying off the handle at all times is when you actively are trying to change that, and the perception holds much longer than the reality. So I still get a lot of people that reference like the really angry Tim Castleman days, which there were plenty of. But it's like, I've actually feel like I've been a kinder, gentler guy the last few years. And people are slow to adapt. And, of course, first impressions last a lifetime.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I guess, that's an interesting aspect with social, right? Because who knows how current people are reading
Well, and with social, it's everyone's highlight reel, right? No, I mean, how many people do you get on there that go every day and are like, I've had a bad day? Like I love our mutual friend, Rachel Fay. I love her. She's an amazing woman. I consider her a very close friend. I've spent time at her house and stuff like that. But I always tease her about her Facebook updates because it's like she's the happiest person I know no matter what. Like she's the one that would be like, well, someone broke into our house today and tied us up and stole all our stuff. But, I was thinking about giving it away anyway, and I didn't care. And they on the way out they shot my dog, and I guess they needed to relieve some issues because like it doesn't matter what happens in the thing, and then they physically assaulted me and my entire family, and that was fine because I needed to be humbled, and like it's just like, and you're just like, what are you doing? Like just be real.
Yeah,
just
have a bad day, right?
Yeah, I had a shitty day today, and here's what made it suck, and it's not how I am all the time, but today I just have to share this with you, and tomorrow will be better. Like to me, that's a lot more believable than someone that is having the greatest day of their life every day of their life.
Right. Yeah, I love it. Good stuff. Okay, so true to the nature of the show, we're going to dive into a case study, Tim. This is what made you say, "Oh, Kev, I got one for you."
Absolutely.
And so this will be a lot of fun. Again, sort of the question is the one thing you tried in your marketing that produced the most surprising results. So give us some context and let her rip.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got started full time. It was about late 2008, early 2009, and I learned from guys like Dan Kennedy, Frank Kern, all those guys. And I'll admit, like most comedians starting out, like most musicians, like anyone that's getting started, you emulate those that you learn from. And I really took a lot of Dan Kennedy to heart. And unfortunately, I couldn't afford his newer stuff, so I just got old, bitter Dan Kennedy on CDs, like angry, mad at the world, F the customer, Dan Kennedy guy. So I really learned a lot of those bad habits. And for a long time there, I was very successful. I was doing six figures my second year in the business, and doing at that time what I thought was doing really well. But it was a lot of Me Too marketing and a lot of, well, I saw this guy do it or I saw that guy do it, so I'm going to do it as well, which led me to actually one of the worst decisions I ever made in business, and that was I decided literally on a whim, I'm going to get a business partner, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know anything about this person. We've just met. We live within 3 hours of each other. He seems to be successful based upon, the representative he's showing me, and I seem to be successful based on my representative. So we're going to become business partners, and we did. And over the course of a year, we managed to lose about $100,000 together. So we had successful individual practices. We combined forces. It did not work out for a myriad of reasons, and we kind of decided to go our own ways. And I was really lost because, one, I was kind of doing a marketing that I didn't really like. I was the hype, the carnival barker, the pitch man, and two, I didn't find something or I wasn't excited about what I was doing at that time, which was offline marketing. So through some help with some friends that kind of provided some loving guidance and direction, I started all over. I started in a brand new niche, the self-publishing niche. I had no list. I didn't know if anyone on my old list was even interested. And what I found was, and I got to credit Colin Dario because he gave a talk at an event that I actually attended as a fellow speaker, and I happened to catch the replay of it, and it was the basis, at least for the original work here, And what Colin really shared with me and what I took to heart was that you don't have to have these super mega star results to get started. And in fact, if you start from where you are today, you're going to have a much better chance of success. But in addition of being successful is, we talked about this earlier, no one can call you on your BS for saying, hey, we only sold 100 books this month. Mm-hmm. And the bigger issue, and what I learned that surprised me was, we get in this especially in the make money online niche. You see the guys that are perception and no reality. The guys that took all their money to rent the jet for 1 hour to take that one photo of them coming off the jet. Right. Yeah, right. They went to Enterprise advisor that went out to Vegas, went to the exotic car place, got the Ferrari for the 2 laps around the track thing, and they try to manifest this life, or they try to portray this life that is not authentic, that is not what they're doing, and more importantly, goes against what they truly are at their core being, because they think that's what people want. So what I decided to do was I said, you know what, I've never done any of that, but I'm certainly not going to do that. In fact, I'm going to just be very transparent and authentic in my marketing and just show people exactly where I am, and they can follow along with the process. And what really surprised me about all of that was how receptive people were, one, two, how nobody really cared about my results, and number two, that was number two, and number three is how the lack of results but the increase in transparency made up for any guru positioning. So I got a lot of people to believe in what I was doing, follow me in this journey when I had terrible beginning results. Now, we've improved those over time, and we can definitely talk more about that, but that's the thing that really surprised me was you didn't have to go where everyone was going. You could say, look, here's who I am, here's where I am. Would you like to follow along on my journey? And no matter where you're starting, there are people that are interested in what you have to say. And because of your lack of results, because you do it in an authentic and a transparent way, it actually means more to the end customer, and they get to know, like, and trust you a lot more as a result.
That's great. Great stuff. Yeah, we see people doing that with reporting income for the month and those things. That those people tend to have the biggest following for that reason. They say, wow, I can't believe this person's showing me their bank account, essentially, and admitting these flaws. So just to be clear, when you were sort of admitting that you didn't have the greatest results up front, this is when you started with the publishing product.
Right, exactly. I basically went, and my first product was an outsourcing product, and the upsell was, hey, watch me produce these books based upon this method that I just sold you, which, by the way, I just learned a few weeks ago from my friend. And again, this was totally transparent. Yeah. This was not I'm the greatest self-publishing. It was like, hey, guys, I'm getting started on this journey. Follow me along. And basically people got to see how we went from 0 to 27 books in 12 months, and how our income went from 0 to 4 figures per month in certain niches and stuff like that. And I would have never thought that you could go to somebody and just say, hey, I'm starting this new journey. Do you want to follow along? And them not be like, hey, what's your, how much money have you made off this? Are you a guru? Right. Where's your degree? Where they were just like, yeah, you know what? I like you. You're authentic, and you're not like everybody else out there that goes, hey, here's how I'm making $500 million on Kindle a month by doing no work. So because you stood up from the marketplace in your message and, more importantly, your marketing, people were willing to kind of follow along in the journey.
Interesting. Yes, right. So total antithesis of what everybody else was focused and shoving in everybody's faces, always about the money. It was just more like lifestyle personality marketing, saying, to be honest, come with me because you like hearing from me, and I'll tell you the real deal.
Right, and you see me from the ground up, so I'm just like you, and that's what I really think was the power in that. Is it's two things. One, it's a lot more believable, right? Because it's not like if I said to you or said to anyone, hey, listen, I want to show you how to make $100,000 on Kindle or self-publishing or whatever, and you're starting at zero. That's a hard mountain to climb in the brain. How someone's gonna. I remember the first time someone told me I could make 6 figures doing information marketing, and I grilled this guy because I was like, there's no way, this is a lie. This is a fake. This is a sham. It turns out not at all. But when you don't believe in it, or more importantly, you don't believe in yourself, you think, oh, there's no way. Since our reboot in 2012, we've done $1 million. That's crazy for me to say from a guy who used to make $40,000 a year working in insurance. So people's lack of self-belief, so that makes it more believable. And again, it's more authentic in the process and transparent because you're not going out there and making these hyped up claims. You're like, hey, this is what we're going to do, and I want you to follow along. And you mentioned kind of doing the money claims. There is a video, I'll be totally transparent here. There is a video where I take $100,000 in cash that I actually took out of my bank, out of a duffel bag with security. Quite a fun little trip there. It's like I'm so naive. I just show up to the main branch like I'm wearing what I'm wearing today, like black shirt, and a black shorts and black T-shirt with a duffel bag, right? Like I could not have been more. I'm about to rob the place if I had tried. And I just show up and she's like, "Hi, can I help you?" And I'm like, it's like the private banker area where you go because you have so much money in the bank or whatever. Yeah. And I'm like, "Yeah, I need $100,000." And she's like hitting the panic button, as I'm telling her. She's like, just could you look in that camera real quick at the side profile, So I start the video and I go, "Hey, I'm Tim Castleman and this is $100,000." And I pour it out, and the whole thing is to basically show people that's what I had profited in the first 6 months of whatever year it was that I did that. And I thought that was a great video because it wasn't a fake screenshot, it wasn't anything. It was like, "Hey, I actually have the cash. Mm-hmm. Does your woo-woo guru have that?" Like everyone talks about paper money, but here's real money. You can't dispute that. So I thought, oh, great, smart marketing, Tim Castleman, great job. But what I found was it attracted the people that needed the money the most. And those are not the customers that you want. The people that are desperate, that are like, hey, can I borrow some of that money to pay my bills? Can I'm about to lose everything. I'm about to be homeless. And those are just the people that I don't want to work with or definitely don't want to attract in my business. So, I found that doing the money angle really attracts the people that are only interested in the money. And don't get me wrong, money's important, and we obviously want to make that a component of it. But to me, it's also about people who want to be creative and really aligning yourself with people that have similar ideas and values, and not people that are just so desperate that they are jumping from idea to idea or person to person to make it happen.
That's a great point. I call those people telemarketers with laptops.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah, it's sort of that mentality of get what you can now, go spend it until you get desperate again, and then come back and do it again.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have you seen it? Someone that come into some money somehow, some way, and within 6 months, a year, they're back to where they were before, and maybe even worse. And it's just because, for whatever reason, whatever's going on in their life and their head, they just couldn't be comfortable with that cash, and they're always in that desperate fire mode of like, okay, the house is on fire, and that's the only time I'm really going to respond to this emergency. That's
right. And you bring up another good point, and it's something that you cannot predict or understand unless you find a little success and then sort of get into the jet stream of successful marketing, which is you begin to meet and network with other successful people, and you end up down alleyways that you just never knew existed, and you find different ways to market and to sort of serve your customer, or find completely different niches that you just never could have imagined yourself in, right? When you were taking glamour shot photos.
Yeah, right. I never thought I'd be a 3-time best-selling booklet author on Amazon, right? I mean,
it's so. But because you're the kind of guy who had a little success and learned from your lessons and said, okay, wait a minute, I'm sort of accidentally attracting the kind of person I don't want to be surrounded by, but at the same time, you take something like seeing Colin's presentation and going, wait a minute, I think I could take that a step further. That resonates with me. I'd like to really explore this, turn it into $1 million business authentically from the ground up.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And the thing is, even though I had this reboot, what I didn't lose was the marketing lessons from, Tim 1.0, if you will. Mm-hmm. And that was great because I was able to go, okay, what did I really like about that business? Okay, and what did I really hate? All right, and I mean, as simple and naive as it sounds, I really was just like, well, let's do more of this and less of this, and let's create in a way that is okay. And I think I struggle with this all the time still, but I'm much better than I used to be. My biggest problem was, I'd walk into a room and be like, yeah, we just got done with this promo. It did 20 grand, and a friend of mine would be there like, hey, we just got done with this promo. It did $1 million or it did 100,000. And immediately, instead of going, well, what's different about us and why did we both succeed and why is it both okay that we've done that? I would immediately turn to, well, I'm just a piece of shit, right? I'm not a great marketer. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm a fake. I'm a fraud. I shouldn't be doing that. And what this whole process really taught me was that it's okay to have your results, but it's also okay to be happy for other people and realize that you want no part of that. It is great that they make all of this money doing whatever it is, but there's no amount of money in the world that would make you want to do that.
Boy, that's a good one. That's a good one. And you know what? I'll take it a step further, Tim, and even say, even if they have a similar business model to yours and they're outshining you in some way, that's okay too. But it's really hard to do what you're saying. I love that you brought that up, because I will say that's something I've only recently felt like I've come to terms with. And I'm not a highly competitive guy. I'm not motivated too much by jealousy, but you certainly feel jealousy, especially with a thing like Facebook, which just didn't even exist a few years back, where you can log on every day and, like you said, see someone's highlight reel, and who knows how much of it's true or not, but you're just constantly being one-upped. Like, why do we voluntarily log into a place where all anyone's trying to do is one-up us, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But to come to grips with that and feel yourself, have that genuine tinge of jealousy or whatever, scarcity mindset, and then the next thought be, you know what? No, that's perfectly fine, because I remember what I'm doing. I know it's still growing. It's still getting better. And when I reach the end of this journey, I'll start another one, because I've already shown myself that I can reboot whenever I need to and make it even better.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, you don't get to see what's going on in their life and their business. Like I have some friends that are very good product creators. I don't know if I'd call them experts in what they do, but they sure as hell can make products like crazy. Yeah. And on one hand, I'm jealous, because it's like, man, I'd love to be, a Facebook traffic, offline, online, XYZ expert. But then on the other hand, I look and I go, man, that's exhausting. Yeah. And are you doing it because you want to do it? Because that's when I create, it's because I want to create something and kind of put it out into the world, if we can get all esoteric. For them, they got a paycheck they got to meet. They got staff, they got payroll. And I've seen it, being at events and seeing the who's who at the top of the game, and they have to be so prim. They have to be so proper. They have to be so polite. They have to be so PC, and they have to to me, they live in a world of I can't offend, and they have to. They're hot potatoing the whole time, and I'm like, that's just exhausting to think about. Like, you make a joke, and before you know it, you got to go and apologize because one guy that came from 2,000 miles away is offended. And now you got to it's just that's just exhausting to me. So I'm not perfect at it. What I try to do, if anyone's struggling with this, like what it did for me was, one, I always instead of looking forward, because we always do, and Dan Sullivan taught me this, it's like to look backwards and see where I came from. So I mentioned doing 7 figures. Like, I never thought that, right? I'm not one of those guys that's like, oh, I want more. It's like, I never thought I'd make what I'm making now. Hell, there were some times in my life I didn't think I'd be alive this long to make that type of money. So I always try to look at where I came from to where I am now, and as long as I'm bettering my best, that really helps. And then the other thing I do is I try to look at the big picture and always realize, especially on social media, that you're never getting the full picture. The guy that brags about the $500,000 launch, when you take away the affiliate commissions, the refunds, the JV prizes, the XYZ, maybe he only takes 30 to 50K away. And then you go, do I want to make that little for that much work? Not really.
Right. It is, like you said, it is exhausting. Tim, how do you use results and money in your marketing now?
Well, I mean, I still do use them and kind of show people what we've done, but they understand that it's a growing process and that it's building up. And what I always one thing I always took away from Kennedy that I'll remember is find a place where you can win. So I'll actually share with you kind of what the future, the next couple months, looks like for our company, because we've really started to talk about this a lot. So you have those guys and girls out there that have these big companies, whether they're want to build a software app, whether they want to just be a multi-million-dollar company, and then of course you got the who's who gurus that have these big companies with TPS reports and office spaces and HR, and that's great for them. But I'm not going to compete with them, nor can I. Their results are bigger, their staff is bigger, they can do more in a day than I can in a week just because of their staff. So what I said was, well, where can I win? And what I decided was, I'm going to go for the person that does not want that life, the person that's just like me, that when they see that goes, no amount of money's worth that. I'm not trying to become the next Microsoft or whatever, and kind of share the journey that way. So we're actually coming out with something hopefully next month called Simple Little Business, and the whole gamut behind that is, it's the antithesis of that. It's the complete opposite. It's just like, hey, that's great for them, but I want people that just want to run a small company with maybe them and a handful of employees that they can create when they want, make the money that will make them more than happy in lifestyle, and not have to have all the stress and agony of a big staff, overhead, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where the money comes into play, and that's where I'll show, like we talked about here. Hey, I rebooted in 2012, and by 6 months into 2015, the company had done had done seven figures, and kind of appealing to that, but also appeal to them. So that's the money angle, but also appeal to them in different angles, like the lifestyle angle, the freedom angle, of course, and really for me the stress angle, and not being connected to a business that you hate with a job, having a fancy, well-paying job basically, right. Instead having a business that's kind of built around who you are as a human being, what you want to share with the world, and the best way that you want to do that.
Tim Castleman 2.0. I love it, dude. I love what you're doing. I love what you're saying. I could go on forever, but you've given us a lot of gold here, and I really appreciate it. Where can people go to learn more about your publishing business and your new ventures and your podcast?
Yeah, so the podcast is twodrinktim.com, just twodrinktim.com. It's very infrequent. I call it the semi-frequent, infrequent podcast. So I record it when I feel like it, or I interview some bands. The main website is timothycastleman.com, and before too long, actually you can go there today if you were listening to this. You can go to simplelittlebusiness.com and kind of find out more about that. Excellent.
Hey, man, really appreciate you doing this. It was great catching up, and thanks for sharing so transparently with us.
Ah, man, glad to do it. I look forward to connecting at another event. Maybe we can, get Ben to have to buy pants in the middle of an event like we did last time. It's like, you're going to need pants to go in that restaurant, so thank you.
Ben in pants, that's right. It's a treat for everybody. All right, bro, we'll talk soon. Thanks, man.
See you, bud.
Bye. Hey, thanks for listening to another fine episode of the Truth About Marketing podcast. I do appreciate your time. I know you have lots of choices. And if you're loving this podcast, I'm loving having you listen to it. And let's celebrate our relationship, won't we, with a review, a 5-star review on iTunes.com. That's how they judge these things, right? iTunes looks at how many people rate and review your podcast, and then they decide if it's worthy of telling other people about. So if you think this is a good podcast and you think other people like you should hear it, if you go to iTunes and rate and review the show, that's the best way to get the word out. Really appreciate it. If you want to learn more about how to improve your copy, you can do that on the inside at copychief.com, and visit copychief.com/TAM to get all the links and resources we mentioned on today's episode. The Truth About Marketing podcast is produced by James Clouser, graphics by Cassie Clouser, and the bullets for this show, so handily displayed for you, written by Dan Ludgater. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.